Hi, you guys. So this is going to be my message for you guys today. Like I said, I'm going to try to put some things up here for you to understand exactly if you are supporting any of these people, Obama, any of these people. I want you to understand that they are committing treason. And when you understand that, you have to understand you cannot support that in any fashion. You've grown up like I have. You've grown up in freedom, and the reason why you've grown up in freedom, for the most part, is because of our form of government. Because people have fought and died for the Bill of Rights and for the Constitution. And that gives you the freedoms that you have. What it doesn't give you is it doesn't give you the freedom to change it. If you don't like it, there's lots of countries that don't have what we have. And if you support socialism or communism, there's tons of countries you can go to. But what you don't have the right to do is alter this one. And that's not, I'm not just saying that to you guys, but this goes for all of our officials, our president, right on down. They don't have the right. And in fact, it's very explicit that if they're caught undermining in any way the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, that it carries with it penalties of everything from imprisonment to capital punishment, death. I personally, I'm for capital punishment. I want to see these guys made issues out of what they're in the process of doing now. Because what they're in the process of doing right now, even for those of you that have chosen to be ignorant, they're planning on enslaving and killing all of us. It's not a conspiracy. All you got to do is go online, open your eyes and read. It's all right there. Agenda 21, all of it. And they're throwing it in your face now because so many of you are choosing to be ignorant. Say nothing, do nothing. So I'm going to put some things in front of you, remind you, if you didn't hear it the first time, what these people have already said openly, so that you understand what you're supporting. Okay? I'll be back later. Bye.
The state of our republic is beyond dire. We need more than a Declaration of Independence. We need an emergency declaration of survival. We need the people to realize the fall of the republic is happening now. Today, I went back and looked at the articles of impeachment from back in the 1970s against Richard Milhouse Nixon. And it was stunning how Obama has done everything Nixon did publicly, far surpassed it, and not gotten in any trouble. And the reason I was thinking about the impeachment of Nixon was the fact that today, Boehner, the Speaker of the House, came out, the Republican leader who plays golf and hangs out with Obama constantly, and said, we're not going to impeach Obama, as if he controls everything through his dictatorial position as the Speaker of the House. Well, he's not technically a dictator, so it should be up to the House itself. Now, some Republicans argue that, hey, he's so unpopular, let's just win a bunch of points by keeping him in office instead of making him the victim. Look, I want to scare the Republicans as well. They're just as bad in many cases as the Democrats. The Republican leadership with NAFTA and GATT and the Police State Patriot Act and all of their corporate welfare, the banker bailouts that were bipartisan, the list goes on and on. The Iraq War. I want crimes like Benghazi Gate and, of course, Solyndra and the energy deals and Fast and Furious and all of it to be punished. You notice it gets worse and worse and worse. Now the border's wide open. We caught 3 weeks ago the government shipping the illegals in. It's finally national news that they're not just letting them in, they're telling them come and then shipping them all over the U.S. to bankrupt the country. That's the admitted plan under Agenda 21 and Cloward and Piven. They're on record. And what freaks me out is no one gets it but Infowars.com. We have to literally go do the investigations, do the reports, put it out, and then weeks later, watch it become national news. Again, we're on the opposite of a power trip here. This is blowing us away that we are literally on the cutting edge of understanding what's happening. Has anybody else gone and read the articles of impeachment against Nixon? Has anybody else gone and then looked at the Declaration of Independence that was an impeachment of King George III and basically saying you're fired? I mean, this is the reality that we're talking about here. So what I'm getting at here is all of you viewers out there need to realize you have incredible power. You're the real reason Infowars.com is more and more changing history and having a giant effect, working with other pro-liberty groups that transcend terms like liberal or conservative, folks like DrudgeReport.com and WorldNetDaily.com. We're just simply organizations and groups that value the truth, value justice, and don't want to repeat the mistakes of history. But we don't just have to learn from history to not repeat the mistakes. We can also learn from history to repeat things that have been successful, like the impeachment of Nixon, like the defeat of King George III, the tyrant. We can also learn good lessons from history of victories we've had. So let's first take a quick look at the Declaration of Independence and the unanimous vote in Congress, July 4th, 1776, in this month of July, to understand what we've gone through. And ask yourself, does this not parallel what's happening with Obama and these crimes? He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good, blocking everything, vetoing everything. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has called together legislative bodies in faraway places and not let the public become aware of what's actually being passed. Look at how they put it all into UN law, secret tribunals, secret treaties that circumvent Congress. Again, there's dozens of these points. Here's another one. He has endeavored to prevent the population of the states for the purpose of obstructing laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. So exactly what happens. Make it hard to become legally here, but let the illegals pour in because they'll be dependents under their control, and not letting the public get a hold of public land. The exact same type of stuff that King George III was engaging in. He has kept among us in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislatures, circumventing the colonies or the states, militarizing the police, putting the military on the streets. For the quartering of large bodies of armed troops among us, again, militarization of police, for protecting them by mock trial from punishment when they murder the general population or commit crimes against the inhabitants of the states. Look at all the activity we've seen. Continuing, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world. Again, they've kind of done the opposite of that, but the same thing through globalism, where they've made having jobs here and having factories here so expensive because of all the regulations. It's cut off our trade and moved it to foreign lands they control. Same thing then with mercantilism that they had, where they wouldn't allow manufacturing in the colonies, only in England. For imposing taxes on us without consent. Look at all the regulations and the currency taxes and all the things they've done. For depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury. Look at Obama with the NDAA. Or all these other, federal power grabs we see with the courts. For suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. Look at how the EPA and all these agencies just basically do whatever they want. And it goes on to talk about putting mercenary armies in and using our taxes to fund other mercenary armies and wrecking whole countries and destroying whole areas. Look at what they've been funding ISIS to do. Now, that's only skimming the surface of the Declaration of Independence, which again was an impeachment of the King of England in basically a common law court that stood up because the people stood up behind it. There are many parallels there, but nothing, my friends, compared to the parallels in the articles of impeachment that were brought out back on July 27th, 1974, and then the subsequent trial that began to unfold in the Senate, and then Nixon finally stepped down. And I've got to say, I would have been for the impeachment of Nixon. And I was born right when all this was going on. Many of you weren't even born then. This was 40 plus years ago. But if you look at Nixon and what he did compared to Obama, I mean, Obama has gone light years ahead of what Bill Clinton or Richard Nixon ever did. I mean, it is incredible. But this is how countries devolve. This is how things degenerate over time, because the system gets away with more and more until basically anything goes, and then you have a total nightmare, collapse, tyranny on your hands. Now, again, this is long, but I challenge people out there in the media, I challenge citizens and others to go read the articles of impeachment against Nixon in the House of Representatives and then compare it to what's happening today. And it gets worse towards the end. The parallels are incredible. Number 4, that is in Article 1. Interfering or endeavoring to interfere with the conduct of investigations by the Department of Justice of the United States, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Office of Watergate Special Prosecutor Force, and congressional committees. I mean, he's blocked all the committees on IRS Gate, Obama has. The Justice Department's run by his mob boss, Eric Holder. They get away with murder. They've been caught with the memos, ordering everything shut down. We have them open and shut. Let's move on to number 8. Making or causing to be made false or misleading public statements for the purpose of deceiving the public of the United States into believing that a thorough and complete investigation has been conducted with respect to those allegations of misconduct on the part of personal and executive branch of the United States. And it just goes on. Now let's move on to Article 2. That's where it really gets crazy. Using the powers of the office of the President of the United States, Richard M. Nixon or Barack Obama, in violation of his constitutional oath, faithfully to execute the office of the President, won't control the borders, runs all these scams, gives heat-seeking missiles to al-Qaeda. To the best of his ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and disregard of his constitutional duty to take care of the laws to be faithfully executed. And then it goes on. Article 2, Section 1. He has acted personally and through his subordinates and agents endeavoring to obtain from the Internal Revenue Service, in violation of the constitutional rights of citizen, confidential information contained in income tax returns for purposes not authorized by law, and to cause in violation of the constitutional rights of citizens, income tax audits or other income tax investigations to be initiated or conducted in a discriminatory manner. MSNBC calls for the whole Tea Party to be arrested. They defend him doing this. Nixon had 100 and something names and didn't even use them. They're using it against hundreds of thousands of Americans, arresting people, making stuff up, shutting down their 501c3 Constitution charities, shutting down pro-life groups, churches, a reign of chilling effect terror. He misused the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Secret Service, and other executive personnel in violation and disregard, again, to persecute people. It goes through it in Article 2, Section 2. Article 2, Section 3, he has acting personally and through his subordinates and agents in violation of disregard of the constitutional rights of citizens, authorized and permitted to be maintained a secret investigations unit with the office of the President, financed in part by money derived from campaign contributions, which unlawfully utilized the resources of the Central Intelligence Agency, engaged in covert and unlawful activities, and attempted to prejudice the constitutional right of the accused to fair trial, setting people up, running spy operations, using the CIA and the media to plant stories. This is all public now. They don't even hide this now. I understand scoring political points against the liberals, the socialists, the authoritarians that pose as liberals by letting this go on. But there won't be a country anymore. Obama's in office another 2 years. There'll be 1 million, 2 million people a month hitting the Southwest by then. We're already in collapse.